Hello, welcome to today's webinar. Our topic for today is best practices for safer indoor and outdoor visitation. My name is Megan Klein and I will facilitate our meeting today. Now, if you have any questions during our presentation, simply click the Ask a Question button located right on this page to submit them to our team. We're going to answer as many questions as we can at the end of our presentation, but if we don't get to your question, please know that we will answer by email. Okay, now the important part. Please note, the information contained in this presentation is intended to provide general information, but not advice about certain regulations and initiatives. This is not intended as legal or other advice, and each situation may vary depending on the particular facts and circumstances. You should never act upon this information without first consulting qualified counsel. Our webinar today will be recorded. Today's webinar is presented by Erin Berry, Direct Supply's Director of Interior Design, and Karl Seagren, a Senior Environmental Product Consultant right here at Direct Supply. And now, please welcome Karl to get us started.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you all for joining us here this afternoon. We wanted to just start off by telling you that the main reason why we're hosting this webinar today is to make sure that all of you are aware of some of the dollars that are available to you that will help you remain compliant with what OSHA is asking you to do. So to start off with that, OSHA is enforcing standards for physical barriers and social distancing within their emergency temporary standards that were issued at the end of June 21st of 2021. To support these efforts, CMS is offering up to $3,000 per senior living facility, and you can use that funding to put towards the purchase of things like clear, transparent physical barriers to protect your staff and your residents and any guests that come into your community as well. If you have any questions about how to utilize the Direct Supply to help you take advantage of this funding, simply reach out to your Direct Supply account manager. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Erin to get into more particulars on this topic.
Thank you. Okay, so if we can just go to the next slide, and we've covered that one, so one more slide, please. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why, again, we're here today. So we really want to let everybody know that partitions are a really great way to help try and keep your community safe, to also re-engage with that visitation that I think was so sorely lacking during the height of the pandemic. So, you know, we did actually a survey last year in 2020 of over 1,000 senior housing prospects. We did the survey through Direct Supply, ages 70 to 93, and it revealed the most important considerations when choosing senior housing includes, number one, demonstrated safety. So what can those prospective residents see as a safety, as something safe when they walk through the facilities and into the communities? And the second thing is access to visitors. They want to make sure that they can still stay connected to their community and their loved ones. The third is quality of staff and leadership, but we're really here today to talk about those first two, which are really some of the most important things that people are looking for these days. So we are going to today talk about just the physical barrier portion of safe visitation. So we know there's a lot of different things that are very important, you know, from social distancing, changing of circulation routes, obviously cleanability when it comes to, you know, fabrics and materials and surfaces. But for this particular portion, we're going to talk about easily adding partitions for infection control. These are really great temporary barriers to help at the height of pandemic and the height of infection, and can be stored away easily kind of for the times that aren't. So we've got many different types of models to walk you through today. And then at the end, I'm also going to pull up a floor plan on the screen and show you just some areas where it might be best suited to add these partitions so that you can see kind of a real life example. So in the next slide, we're going to see our first type of partition, and that's going to be your counter and your desk partitions. So these partitions are perfect for your reception desks also for your nursing stations. It really helps protect the staff and the residents as they're coming up to the desks to ask questions, to check in, pick up their mail, things like that. We're also looking at counter and desk partitions at host stations in the dining room. This can also be on action stations, like some of those exhibition kitchens where you have someone out in the middle of the dining room making pizzas and things like that. And also, of course, at your grab-and-go bistros and coffee areas. So anywhere that you have a staff member stationed and handing out beverages and food and things like that, these counter and desk partitions are really great for those areas. Kyle is actually going to walk us through some of the particular products that you can use for counter and desk partitions.
Thank you, Erin. So what you're seeing here on your slides are a few different options within the direct supply offering. Now, these are merely a drop in the bucket in terms of the number of options out there, but I'll call out each of them by just to give you some examples here. So on the top left-hand side of the screen, you see a Wood Designs table partition. This is a nice option that can be actually screwed on to a table or a countertop, anything that's larger than 24 by 30 inches. There are other sizes available for many of these things too, but that's really a great option for that type of environment. You can actually use this around office desks if there are shared office spaces. You can to keep staff safe and healthy, and you can use it at as Erin noted, you can use it at a front desk, a reception desk, a concierge desk if it's larger as well. On the item on the bottom left of your screen, the Waddell countertop acrylic shield, is a less permanent option. It's got a smaller footprint, and this can be used to fit again on a countertop or table. It has wooden bases to support it and provide a little bit of a decorative look, and it will fit on anything that is 12 inches by 30 inches or larger. So much smaller footprint if you have a smaller space that needs to be protected, or you need to be able to protect staff and residents and guests as well. On the top right-hand corner of your screen, the Gemini Builds It 46-inch acrylic divider. This is also a less permanent option, and it's designed for larger spaces. So 46 inches across, it's going to be useful in those larger table areas. Maybe you have a conference room. Again, a larger reception desk would be a great fit for this. And another thing to note on this is that you can get the paint the wooden base painted to match your decor. So that there are some customizable options with this type of divider. And you can also get an optional window in this type of divider as well. So something that toward the bottom of it, if you were to have a bank service or a pharmacy within your community that you needed to, or people needed to pass things through, but you still wanted that protection near the face level, the height, face-to-face height of your guests and your residents and your staff, this is something that can be done with this particular type of divider. And then last but not least, in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the XY divider, which is a great tool to be used in a dining room or a game room where you may have 4 people sitting around a table wanting to interact, wanting to socialize, but still wanting to be safe. And you want to be able to protect from those respiratory droplets that can be passed fairly easily when people are sitting that close together. So these just give you a few options that can be used in the countertop. But again, there are many other options to choose from, and your direct supply account manager can help you sort through all of that. I'll hand it back over to Erin to talk about floor standing partitions.
Thanks, Kyle. So these floor standing partitions are actually a really great solution here because they are extremely flexible and movable throughout your community. They can be used in so many different ways where you have a little bit of space. You're going to need to make sure that you have the right circulation around these partitions, but they can really be great in areas like partitioning off portions of your lobby for some visitation rooms. So if you have a particularly large lobby and you want to almost create another room so that you can have visitation kind of right off that front vestibule, this is a really great option. It's also a really nice option too if you have an open floor plan where you have maybe your dining room kind of open to your lobby or open to a bistro. You can use this as really partitioning off separate rooms. So if you have someone sitting and eating, not wearing a mask, next to a lobby where you're hoping people are masked up, this is a really great way to divide those spaces. It also makes really great dividers for even your vestibule. If you have a large vestibule and you want to create an in and an out at that vestibule area too. You can put this right down the center and really create some nice circulation through there. In your dining room, we've seen a lot of times people taking out tables to allow more space. If you're taking out tables, consider adding a floor partition as well. And that really helps divide and corner out that space too. So I think Kyle is going to talk us through some particulars for the floor standing partitions.
That's right. Thank you, Erin. So as you're seeing here on your screen, we've got a few different styles of the floor standing partitions. So I'll speak to the one on the left here with next to those yellow chairs. This is going to be a metal framed divider that has a kind of it's a sort of a plexiglass material to it, but a little bit less sturdy than some other types of material. And it does have standard or more permanent feet on the bottom of it, stationary feet. It's not going to be on wheels. So in some environments that it may be desired because it's less likely to roll away or go someplace where you don't want it to go, it would need to be picked up and carried to a new space. But it would be, as Erin noted, a great spot in between tables and dining rooms like it's shown here in this picture. Or in a game room where you have lots of folks gathering together. The middle option is a glass divider, and this is going to be mobile. So you can take it and position it wherever you need to have something readily available to protect people from themselves and from those close personal interactions. It can also fit nicely as an option near temperature scanners or any health screening devices that you may have as folks enter your community. Last but not least, here on the right-hand side, we have a portable acrylic divider. This is going to be another option that it's kind of a hybrid between the two because it does have locking casters on it, which is a great feature to make sure that it's not rolling away when you don't want it to, but it will make it easy to maneuver it to a new spot if you should so desire. With all of these floor standing partitions, one of the real nice benefits of it is that you can easily position them in spaces where you may not have a permanent setup. So if you don't have a permanent visiting area for guests when they come to visit their loved ones, you have the ability to quickly set up and configure a room or a space for them as you need to do. So they can pretty much be set up anywhere you'd like them, including common areas alongside recliners and couches and that sort of stuff as well. I'll hand it back to Erin to talk about the third type of partition.
Great. So now we're going to cover hanging partitions. These are interesting because they're best suited for areas where you have kind of a low or normal height ceiling. Obviously not best if you have maybe a double height ceiling or ceiling and a half kind of height, because you do have to hang them from wires or chain or something like that. But these are great when you don't have a lot of floor space. So if you're looking at a dining area where you have perhaps long family style tables and you don't have the ability to break them up, you can hang these partitions, kind of in intermittent spots throughout the length of the table. It's also great when you have perhaps banquette or booth seating and you don't have the ability to separate those tables as well. You can drop these partitions right there, kind of in between those tables. This is also really nice too for reception areas and host stands, maybe where you don't have a lot of counter space to be able to give, perhaps you have computers and paperwork and things like that, and you don't necessarily have the space to give to those counter standing partitions. It can be a really nice thing to drop this down. The great thing about this too is it kind of goes away. So, it's really nice and transparent. There's not a lot of framework around it. So it does kind of have a little bit less of that institutional feel as well. I think looking at this too in visitation rooms. So if you do have a discovery room or a visitation room, this can be nice to drop down maybe in between a sofa and a chair, where you do still want to have some of that intimacy, but you do still really need that protection. That can be a really good solution. And so Kyle's going to show us the type of hanging partition we have available.
Within this space, there are a number of options to choose from as well. We're showcasing here just a couple of different options, both of which are acrylic. They come in a couple of different sizes, and there are other sizes available beyond what you see here on this slide. But one thing I'll call out for you is that the unit on the left has a very subtle opening on the bottom. So if you were to hang it over a reception desk or someplace that you needed to be able to slide something through, you could do that. It would not be, it's not its primary intent, but it is available to you. The unit on the right-hand side of the screen is going to have a window where it's really intended to be able to pass objects in between people while still protecting them, again, closer to their face where their mouth and nose are. So very simple options, but again, as Erin noted, great options that are able to be used anywhere you have a lower hanging ceiling. I'll hand it back to Erin to talk about some outdoor options as well.
So as we know, outdoor visitation has been absolutely key during the pandemic. Obviously in areas where we have more better weather, I guess, in the summer and obviously in the spring and the fall. But, creating nice intimate visitation spaces outdoors is a really great thing to have for your residents and their families. So anytime that we can do something like tenting an area, so maybe multiple tents, maybe even kind of larger umbrellas and things like that to really divide up the space to make people feel like they have an area where they can have some intimate gathering outdoors. We've seen a lot of, just tables and chairs and things like that, but anywhere where we can partition these things off. The nice thing about doing a tent as well is that perhaps we can provide some of those outdoor heaters. I know we've all seen a lot of outdoor restaurants, a lot of outdoor dining at our restaurants, and a lot of those have provided heaters and those, kind of shoulder seasons as well. So anytime that we can provide that to add a little bit more protection in case it rains or anything, we do think we're going to have to see a lot more outdoor visitation, kind of still going forward. So it's good to provide those things for them. Kyle's going to show us a couple of options.
So as it relates to products here, unlike a lot of the safety partitions that we just looked at, which you would be able to find if you were to go on to Direct Supply's website, you won't see a lot of the outdoor equipment listed on our website. But we have access to tons of stuff that's not shown on our website, and all you need to do is contact your account manager. So a couple things, a couple of options, as Erin noted: canopy tents, a wide variety of options coming in different colors. Some have sides on them that you can drape if it is raining outside and you want to prevent, and windy and blowing, if you want to prevent rain from getting into the space or water from getting into the space where you are hanging out. You have the option to go that route as well. And then portable and electric and or gas heating options are also available through Direct Supply. And these are going to be necessary depending on the layout of your building and where you're hoping to set up this outdoor visitation space. So know that you can access any of that stuff through your account manager. Just reach out to them and they'll be able to help you out. And back to Erin.
Thanks, Karl. Okay, so now we're going to point out some areas where you can do, some real-time thinking about how this could affect your communities. So here you'll see a floor plan on the screen, and I've shown you this is an active community, and you can see as you come up to the front, you've got some really nice outdoor visitation spaces. You have some really nice particular places marked out with umbrellas. And table seating right there for great visitation options. And this lets multiple families interact at the same time, right? So you can space people out, you can have multiple visitations going on at one time. And then when you enter that vestibule area, as you can see on your left and your right-hand side, right into the vestibule, I've put some floor standing partitions there. So this gives us a really nice option for indoor visitation, of course, during inclement weather. There's a larger visitation space on your left-hand side that can have a few more family members. And then you've got a smaller, more intimate one on the right-hand side where maybe it's just kind of a one-on-one visitation. And then when you move over to the right-hand side, you'll see that orange line. That's going to be your countertop partition. That's on the reception desk. So, you have a really nice countertop partition there to help protect that staff and your visitors coming in as well when you're doing temperature screenings and things like that. Now, when you go over to the left-hand side of the lobby, you're going to see another floor standing partition there, and that's separating the cafe from the lobby itself. So you have some food service going on over there. you've got people eating and drinking. And then in the lobby, of course, you have more maybe masked people, and you have just, kind of your typical things. But I think it's really good to separate out those two spaces so that you can also separate out circulation. So as you see, you're really kind of forcing people to go specific ways when you add some of those floor partitions, even between columns. And then you see the bistro right there on the left-hand side with the countertop partition as well. A great area, again, to add some of those countertop partitions. And so on the next slide, we're going to go through the dining areas, and I'll show you what's possible for dining as well. So I didn't remove any of the furniture in this particular view. However, I do think at times of heightened, sensitivity, it is good to remove some of those tables to create a little bit more space for people to social distance. And if you did that, I could see adding some floor partitions to this dining room. However, since we didn't do that in this instance, what I've done is I've added a countertop partition to the host stand that you see on the bottom right-hand side. And then towards the back of that dining room, we have an action station. So that's when we have a chef come out and do some presentations, some food presentations. And this is also where we lay out perhaps the brunch line. So you walk up, you order your omelets and your waffles. So it's really great to have that protection there as well. And then the other things you'll see inside this dining room space are the hanging partitions. You can see that we have some banquettes and booths down on the bottom left-hand side that we'd like to partition out, but we don't have that floor space to put a floor partition. So that's where we're really hanging those hanging partitions there. I've also included them towards the back where we have just your typical tables. We have them up against the wall, and again, not a whole lot of room to put those floor partitions. So we're going to hang those partitions right there in between those tables. And then, of course, out the back door of this dining room, we have another great opportunity for some of that outdoor visitation space. We've got, multiple areas of soft seating, some lounge chairs, and then we've got some outdoor dining as well, where you see those green umbrellas. So again, just some practical applications here for where to put some of those partitions should you need them. And I think now we're going to go ahead and bring Megan back in for some Q&A.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you both, Erin and Karl, for all of that information and for your expertise especially. So we do have time to answer some questions. Again, a reminder for our viewers, there is a Ask a Question button right on the screen that you are watching us on right now. Feel free to submit those questions whenever you're comfortable. For now, though, we'll get started with the ones that have come through. And let's start here. What are your top suggestions for partitions?
Is that in general? So I would say my top suggestions are utilize a mixture of all three in your community. I think the best bang for your buck is going to be obviously protecting that lobby and entry area. I think reception, food service areas are really going to be, I think, that main protection piece. And then maybe get a floor partition just so that you can partition off some of that visitation space, but maybe a little bit of a mixture of all three, I would say. Karl, do you have any additions to that?
I would just say think about the number of spaces that you want to cover and factor that into what your budget will allow. And there are a wide ranging in terms of the products themselves. There's a wide range in terms of cost. So think about that as well, as I'm sure you probably are. But you can, and how long you think you want to have those partitions in play as well. I know this is technically an emergency temporary standard. We don't know how long that standard may be in place. So if it's going to be a longer time, or if it ends up being a longer time, you may want something a little more durable that's going to withstand, more use. So keep that in mind as well.
Fantastic. Okay, next, beyond traditional plexiglass, do you have more decorative options? Are there decorative options out there?
Do you want me to take?
Yeah.
You
can take it first.
All right. So So yes and no. There are some of the options that we showed again are there's just a very small smattering of what we showed you here today. There is the ability to customize with some of the models that we talked about. You can, as I noted earlier, you can stain or get a custom stain for some of the wood trim so that it better matches your decor. But there are, in terms of the styling, you can also change the sizes of the some of the plexiglass pieces. But we're somewhat limited on that area. Erin, if there's anything else that you'd like to add, though.
Yeah, I would say for the temporary partitions, that's probably going to be your best bet, the customization of what we offer. Obviously, there are ways to manufacture and select more decorative options. I would just say, also be aware that some decorative screening, like if you think about maybe like the rice paper screens and maybe even just some trellis style screens, aren't going to provide that protection that something like a more, solid plexiglass partition would provide. So definitely take that into consideration when you are thinking about partitions. Just a lattice screen isn't really going to do the job of protection there.
Okay, so you both touched on this one just a little bit with this last question, but the question of, do your manufacturers offer custom options came through. And since you did mention it, could you go into just a little bit more detail about some of those potential customizations that are available?
Sure, I can take this one. So we, with a few of our manufacturers, Gemini Builds It, for example, is one company. They offer their products are manufactured here in the U.S. and they even with a custom option, they are able to produce them and ship them out very quickly, a couple of weeks as opposed to months. I know that some of you, if you endeavored to get safety partitions last year, you might have been dealing with the challenges of getting product from overseas, and know that we have options that are made here in the U.S. that will be available faster, even the custom styling. So essentially, if you have particular sizes that you need to work with based on the space limitations in your building or the size of a tabletop that you want something to go on, you can reach out to your account manager, and they can reach out to Gemini Builds It and some of our other manufacturers who will be able to provide a variety of different sizes. So that with the sizes that you may need in acrylic or plexiglass or a glass in some cases as well. Wood color or the wood stain color can be changed as well, and potentially made to match the decor of your community. And you can get cutouts in some of these plexiglass dividers as well. So again, if you need to be able to slide things down to in between people, but you want to have that airway passage blocked, you can do that with these dividers. So many of the ones that we looked at today have an option to have a cutout window, some of which are standard. They may not even need to be customized, but they come as a standard option. So know that there are a variety to choose from. And my best recommendation, if you don't see what you're looking for on our website, is simply to email or call your account manager, and we'll be able to track something down for you in most cases.
Excellent. Very helpful information. Okay, so coming up next, we've got what would you suggest to protect entertainers within our community programs?
I would definitely suggest the floor partition. So if you can find a floor partition that's a clear plexi, I would recommend putting those in between perhaps a piano player. A lot of times we have piano players in the dining room during dinner. I would definitely put one of those floor partitions in between the entertainer and the residents. And really anytime that you have anyone in the community, they should, have that partition kind of in between them.
Very helpful. So next up, can you touch on some of the best methods to clean and disinfect these partitions and barriers we're talking about today?
Sure, absolutely. So first and foremost, the best thing to do, and the number one thing to do, is to follow the CDC guidelines for cleaning and disinfecting. So those are easily, so if you do a Google search, you can find CDC guidelines for cleaning and disinfecting, and it will provide direction on what you should be doing. With all of the safety partitions we have been talking about today, they are going to be impermeable. And that's something that OSHA calls out as well. We're not talking, I know Erin had noted some of the kind of the mesh or the lattice work or something of that sort, or the rice paper. Some of those are decorative, but as she noted, those are not intended to provide protection necessarily for folks. So, and they are not able to be cleaned and disinfected in the same fashion because they are not hard. They do not have the same, are not made of the same material. So, assuming that we're talking about impermeable surfaces like glass, plexiglass, acrylic, even wood, those should be cleaned and disinfected. Typically, it's a daily thing that they should be cleaned and disinfected based on the guidance that the manufacturer provides in accordance with what the CDC recommends as well. So start with the CDC and then also align that with what the care and maintenance instructions that would come with your safety partitions. But typically soap and water for cleaning in most cases, and then a softer disinfectant that's going to be it's not going to break down the acrylic and the plexiglass. That's going to be a little bit more sensitive than glass typically will be. So follow those care and maintenance instructions that you get with the material, with the dividers, and you should be in good shape.
Excellent information. Wow, this is very informative. Okay, so on top of adding physical barriers, are there any other design tips or tricks that we can offer in order to promote social distancing and safe distancing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've dealt with a ton of them over the past, what are we, 18 months, 19 months now. I would say some of the biggest ones are, of course, going to be social distancing. So whatever you can do to move your lobby around, your dining room around, to really promote that social distancing and circulation is the best. You know, if we can create paths and kind of wayfinding tips for our communities, we're going to be in a better position. I think too, when you think about visitation, if we can kind of stop it before it gets through that vestibule, so any sort of temperature taking you can do in the vestibule, any sort of masking up and providing PPE at the vestibule is best, and really, you know, just kind of stopping people at that reception desk and making sure that they're doing the right thing and they're following protocols. And then as far as visitation goes, I would say anything at the front of your building that you can turn into a safe visitation room, such as a discovery room, perhaps even an unused office, or even an unused resident unit. If you have a resident unit towards the front of your community, why not turn that into a visitation space? You've already got the hand washing sinks, you've got closets and places to perhaps even change clothes out of street clothes. It's a really great way to still provide that visitation. And in some cases, you even have an entry from the apartment to the outdoors so that you can have people coming in from separate entrances. I can give you a ton more. I don't know how much time we have, but I will say one more thing too. At the dining areas, if you can figure out a way to create some pre-function and post-function spaces so that when you have people queuing for your meals, you can create kind of a nice flow of people in and out of your dining room. So if you have two entryways into your dining room, make one an entrance, make one an exit, and create a purposeful flow through that dining room. Adding a host stand really helps too to control the flow of people and to control how many people you have in your dining room at one time. So whether that turns into a reservation-based system or whether it turns into a please wait here while we prepare your table and you allow a place for folks to gather safely, that's going to be your best bet too.
I'd like to chime in real quick here too, in terms of some of the products. I think that to help with what Erin was suggesting, you can reach out to your account manager as well and look on our website should you need any help finding social distancing markers, signage, things that go on the floor, arrows guiding folks to different directions, safety. Think of those barrier tapes that you see at the airport that guide folks through up and down the aisles, that type of stuff. All of those things we would be able to help you out with as well, and that will help with what Erin was suggesting, some of the flow of traffic accordingly, and that desired social distance that's so important today.
Yeah, and one more thing too, if you go to our website, you can click on the Insights button, and that will give you a ton of really cool content that we've created through COVID. So we've created tips and tricks, COVID design trends. You'll see a lot of products in there that can really help with that too. So I recommend anyone go and take a look at some of the really great content that we have in our insights section.
All right, this next one's going to shift gears just a little bit. Still talking partitions, but can we address a specific instance? So if you are staff sitting with a resident and assisting them with mealtime, should there be a barrier between the two of you? And what recommendations can you provide in that scenario?
That's a tough one, just because, we're talking about physical partitions here for visitation and social distancing. As a caregiver, I don't know that I can make a recommendation for what your protocols will be at your community. I would say use the protocols that your community has in place, because I'm sure they have good ones and the appropriate ones for wherever you are in the country. So I would say probably no physical barriers, just because that would be really difficult, I think, to pass through for the eating and, also for the intimacy of it. But that's kind of my own very personal opinion.
I would echo what Erin said there. I think there are, as we discussed, there are those dividers that have the little cutout windows, but I think that would make it very awkward and impersonal when you're trying to assist a resident. So, yeah, my 2 cents as well.
It's always tough, right? When you're not there to see the scenario, it's hard to give an answer that can really make sense for everybody. Okay, this next one, again, you might just answer with "I'm not sure," but we had a question come through that says, "Are you aware of any non-invasive software or technology that could help with that vestibule screening of visitors and staff so that residents, can be kept safe by stopping it at the vestibule?"
We have a ton, actually. Yeah. And Karl probably knows a lot more about it, but also on the insights portion of our website, there's a really great blogs on the exact type of technology that you can use for that thermal screening. But Karl, if you know anything about the particular products.
Well, I know it's perhaps a smidge more, but I think you covered it quite well there, Erin. In general, if you need temperature scanning devices, I know that there are soup to nuts options there. You can get some very, very basic versions that just do temperature scan, to other ones that are, wall mounted kiosk things, or it's kind of they're typically self-service, but there are some that would require some staff assistance as well. So a number of those things do exist. Again, reach out to your direct supply account manager, or as Erin noted, you can read through some of the material in our insights blog, where you can see some of the cool technology that does exist today, and that you can perhaps take advantage of.
All right, we are, unless any more questions come through, and again, for all of our attendees watching, there is an Ask a Question button on the screen that you're viewing on now. Feel free to click that and submit any questions. Otherwise, we're going to end with this one, which is, where can our attendees find more information on the funding that we mentioned is available for partitions and barriers?
There is, the first thing you can do is reach out to your account manager, and they will be happy to kind of provide a little direction to you on that. Each state should have, each state has a CMP office where you can track down any information you need and get the forms that you may need to submit, along with a quote for the products, which Direct Supply would be happy to provide you. Your Direct Supply account manager would be the first place that I'd recommend. We do have a particular page on our website as well that walks through the steps. And I don't know if that's something that we can put on the screen, but it's directsupply.com / national.
Karl.
Yeah. / national funding / partitions -- barriers / I know that's probably something that you are all writing down here. I don't know if there's an easy way for us to get that on the screen here, but we could certainly, I'm sure, provide it in some fashion to our all participants through an email at some point as well. But start with your account manager. That's probably the easiest way to go, and they can provide some guidance to you.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, ask and you shall receive.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. We're going to leave that up there for everybody to note. It will also be in the recording when we post that as well. So we did not have any additional questions come through, which means that wraps up everything that we have for you here today. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. Thank you for your excellent questions, and a particular thank you to Karl and Erin both for your time and your expertise sharing this critical information with us. One last note, if any of our attendees have additional questions, like Karl has mentioned, you are welcome to reach out to your account manager. If you would like to, you can also email us at webinars@directsupply.com. That's webinars with an S at directsupply.com. Otherwise, we're going to leave that Ask a Question button open for you so you can feel free to continue to submit questions, and you can have a great rest of your afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today.